So, eXp Realty's latest earnings report just dropped. And honestly, it's a bit of a paradox. You've got this company growing like crazy, just at breakneck speed. But at the same time, they're losing more money than ever. How is that even possible? Well, we're going to get into it. Okay, so let's just dive right into the middle of this thing, right? The heart of the paradox. Because when you look at the numbers for eXp's 2025 performance, it really feels like you're reading two completely different report cards. And boom, here it is. This is the core conflict right here. On the one hand, you've got the bad news. Their net loss grew to almost $23 million. That's a lot of red ink. But then, look at the good news. Their revenue, the total cash coming in, shot up to a whopping $4.8 billion. It's like a textbook example of massive top-line growth that just isn't hitting the bottom line as profit. And then you hear from the CEO, Leo Pareja, and he sounds, well, incredibly confident. He's calling 2025 a year of relentless execution and says the industry took notice of our momentum. I mean, you just don't typically hear that kind of talk from the head of a company that's losing more money, right? It just makes the whole thing even more fascinating. So it all boils down to this, doesn't it? What is really going on here? Is Expo a rocket ship that's just hitting a little bit of turbulence on its way to the moon? Or is this a business model that, at its core, might have a real problem turning all that action into actual profit? Okay, to figure this out, we've got to start with the part that's making everyone nervous. Let's take a closer look at that red ink and see what it's really all about. And this isn't just a blip on the radar. Their full-year net loss actually got bigger. It went from about $17 million in 2024 to nearly $23 million in 2025. The main takeaway here is pretty simple. The hole they're in financially, it got deeper. But, and this is a really important but, if you dig into the report, you find something interesting. Even though the total loss went up, their actual operating expenses went down a little bit. That's kind of huge. It tells you they're actually getting more efficient in how they run the day-to-day business, even while they're making these big investments elsewhere. So where did the loss come from? Well, the CFO basically points the finger at two things. The first is something called gross margin compression. All that really means is that the slice of profit they make on each and every sale is getting thinner. Imagine selling way more houses, but making a tiny bit less on each one. It adds up. And the second reason? They're choosing to spend money. It's strategic spending on things they believe will pay off later, like software, legal stuff, and big company events. Okay, so that's the story of the red ink. But at the exact same time all that was happening, the company was just exploding with growth. I'm not talking about a little bit either. They were expanding their footprint and the sheer amount of business they were doing in some really, really big ways. I mean, just take a look at this. Their sales volume shot up 5% to an incredible $194 billion. The number of transactions they did went up. And get this, they also launched in 7 brand new countries and started 4 new divisions. This is the very definition of a company in all-out growth mode. And if you want to see where all that expansion is really hitting its stride, you don't have to look any further than this number right here. International revenue is up 67% year over year. That global bet they're making, it looks like it could be a huge, huge win for them. But, for a company like eXp, the balance sheet is really only half the story. Their entire business, their health, it's all tied up in their gigantic network of agents. They're the core asset. So, the big question is, how are the agents doing? Now, this is a really important metric they track internally. It shows that the average agent at eXp actually got 6% more productive towards the end of 2025. So what does that mean? It means they weren't just padding their numbers by hiring tons of new people. The agents who were already there were actually getting better and closing more deals. That's a super healthy sign. All right, so what about keeping those agents? Did people leave? Yes, some did. That's called attrition. It happens everywhere. But here's the kicker. According to eXp's own numbers, their attrition rate was 25% better than the industry average. So what they're saying is, yeah, we lose some agents, but we're doing a way better job of holding onto our people than pretty much everyone else. And it's not just about keeping the agents they have. They're also attracting some absolute heavy hitters. In 2025 alone, they brought on more than 25 major agent teams that just the year before did a combined $5.5 billion in sales. I mean, come on, that's a massive vote of confidence from people at the top of their game. So, the billion-dollar question, right? How are they going to tie all this together? How do you take all this incredible growth, all this agent success, and finally turn it into profit on the bottom line? Well, if you ask their leadership, the answer is one word: technology. The chairman and CEO, Glenn Sanford, he talks about this tech-first playbook all the time. His whole argument is that technology is the secret sauce. It's the engine that lets them grow so fast and so efficiently, and, this is the key part, it's what makes their agents even more productive. And look, this isn't just some vague idea. He's laid out a very clear 3-step plan for what they're doing in 2026. First, they pilot new AI tools with their country leaders. Then, they deploy those tools out to the agents. And finally, they scale it across the entire platform. The whole point is to use AI to make everything they do leaner, faster, and more efficient. That's their roadmap to finally get profitable.
And that brings us right back to where we started, to that central paradox. What's clear is that XP is making a trade-off. They're willing to accept losses right now in exchange for huge global growth and big bets on technology. They're betting it all on the idea that this will lead to strong, sustainable profits down the road. So the final question is really for you. Do you see this as relentless execution, like their CEO says, or is it a massive, high-stakes gamble on a future that hasn't quite gotten here yet?